Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast, episode 174. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011. Just drop a follow over there, and you'll get notified whenever we go live with the podcast, with the stream. You join the chat, join on all the craziness and the conversation. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video and MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, any way you can support the show, likes, comments, shares, whatever it is. It may seem small, but it does help the channel grow. So any way you guys can do that, spend that time helping us out, would be greatly appreciated. Today we got two topics for you guys. Let's start off with a fun one, right? We have, as of recording, the PlayStation Showcase coming up this Wednesday, and we kind of got the summer echelon of game announcements along the way coming up soon with Summer Games Fest. I'm sure Ubisoft has something, EA Play, I don't even know if that's still a thing. Plenty of summer game announcements ahead of us. And, you know, this is always the season, along with Game Awards season and RIP E3, when we start hearing a bunch of rumors about stuff and start speculating about what's going to be announced, what's going to be new, what's going to be, you know, something maybe we haven't seen before, a new twist on something, DLC, whatever it is. And within some of those announcements, there's a lot of good stuff, clearly, in the gaming community that we do get. But sometimes, every once in a while, we'll get a nice little nostalgia kick as we get a remaster or remake of a game announced, a la a Final Fantasy VII, or, you know, something else I can't, Doom, things like this. And they get worked on, they deliver, and, you know, we're all happy as fans. So I kind of wanted to talk about some remakes and remasters I want to see that unfortunately I don't think are ever going to see the light of day, just because maybe these are a little bit more niche to me in terms of, like, I'm a fan of them, but I don't know of a bigger audience. Like, this is something that game developers would work towards because of that general audience or whatnot, or maybe just doesn't seem like too interesting of an IP in general. The one I can't shake from my head to start off with is one that there's been rumors for a while because people want the franchise to come back. So this one could be probable is more likely a possibility. Words are hard, people. Just because the franchise has a lot of fans behind it, a lot of fanfare for it, and unfortunately it's been one of those rocky roads where even when it did get brought back, not necessarily in a remake fashion, but at least in bringing the IP back, bringing the title back, bringing back the franchise, the excitement was there, the hype was there, and then unfortunately the game didn't deliver in all aspects, is Marvel vs. Capcom. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 would be an awesome remake, remaster. I know there are things that are definitely busted and buggy if they kept everything the same in terms of character-wise. When you look back on the original game, after people got time with it, and obviously arcades and competitions and whatnot, there were characters that definitely people went after, and infinites and combinations and all that stuff that people found that can make the game not fun for the person on the opposite side. But I think that would be a great one to rework, obviously maybe rework a little bit of the game mechanics to make it a little bit more fair or even across the sides. But that game has a lot of fanfare with it just because of its roster. It was a huge roster, and the Marvel vs. Capcom license has a lot of fans behind it, as we saw when they attempted to bring it back with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, right, Moose? Everyone was hyped as shit when that announcement came out. We were looking forward to it. We had new characters that were shown off. We had characters returning, whether in the base roster or in DLC, that were just exciting, and movesets that we remembered, some old game mechanics coming back with the Infinity Stones, similar to other Marvel fighting games. I think it was Marvel Superheroes had the Infinity Stones, or gems as they were called at that time. And then when the game came out, gameplay wise, fantastic. It was a 2v2 instead of a 3v3. Combinations were great. Things flowed very well. Whoop, coming up. And there was a lot of fun to be had in the fights itself. But when it came to a roster, it was initially very lacking. And there weren't too many exciting characters to play as. There was potential, but it was very kind of tip of the iceberg stuff. Along with that, the story mode wasn't the greatest. The graphics were, everybody has their Chun-Li memes of how she looked. Wasn't the greatest, so it was something that the TLC was obviously shown in the gameplay, but I guess just in terms of the rest of the game, it didn't seem like as much care was put into it, and that kind of affected fans in a negative way. So that's a bit of a rough one, and there's a lot of licensing issues with that, like Marvel obviously being now owned by Disney, Capcom obviously doing their own thing. It's hard to picture a world in which these two come back together. It'd be awesome, but I don't know. It might be one of those things where we're always hoping, but it's a very difficult one. I'm sure there's some other more logical explanations for why we'll probably never see the franchise again, that someone else better in the FGC and the fighting game community can explain better than I can. But that's one that's definitely always going to be a sore spot in terms of just like, damn, this could have been one of those franchises like the Street Fighters, like Tekken, like Mortal Kombat that just could have continued and continued. And unfortunately, just something, happened where maybe it didn't deliver as much in terms of sales as it did in fanfare, and just it didn't seem like a worthy investment of their time and efforts. And then when they tried again, it fell flat. So, well, I don't know if that one will ever make a comeback. R.I.P. Another one that I can think of from my childhood is on the PC side of things. And this one's kind of like it happened, but it didn't happen, is the Warcraft series. Now, I know World of Warcraft still crushing it. It seems like their user base may have dwindled a little bit with this latest update, the Dragon, whatever. But obviously the game's still going pretty strong, and that's been their bread and butter for 10 plus years. But I'm talking about the OG Warcrafts, Warcraft 1, 2, 3. I remember at least when 2 and 3 launched, just the excitement around it, playing those games, whether it was on my own or with my dad or with some friends, just diving into that world, learning the real-time strategy aspects of it, just building up the bases, finding out all the different characters you can unlock or rather recruit with the different buildings and stuff like that. And since they went the MMORPG route with World of Warcraft, they've kind of never, as far as I know, really gone back to the real-time strategy aspect of it, which is a little unfortunate. I would love for them to go back and give these games some love and do like a remaster trilogy. Now, granted, they did go back and remaster the third one. I haven't paid attention to it. At least at launch, a lot of negative energy about it. Apparently, it took over the old game, so like you couldn't even play the original. You only had to deal with the new one, and it changed the mechanics of it or things inside of it that weren't friendly to the users. And the only thing that they really rezzed up or reworked was, I believe, the cinematics. In terms of the rest of the gameplay and battle systems or whatever, the in-game moments, nothing was really improved on as far as I could tell. Now, I have heard a little bit of how since post-launch it has gotten a little bit of TLC and runs better, but it's one of those things where, it's a first impression base. You put yourself out there, you try it, and doesn't click, and it's already that sour taste in people's mouths where it's like, do I even give it the time of day to go back, try it again, give it a second chance, whatever it is. It's unfortunate. And I mean, I guess circling back to Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, you could say the same thing. They had some cool DLC characters, like Venom making his return to the series. Winter Soldier was pretty cool. I'm not sure if they had any other DLC characters, but like those two were a lot of fun, but already by that time they had come out, it was just like a lot of the audience had left. So yeah, Warcraft would be great. Putting those 3 in a remastered situation would be nice, but I don't think... I'm sure the audience is there for real-time strategy, as we've seen with like XCOM or Marvel's Midnight Suns or any tactics game. Man, the co-host is really chatty today. It's just not a situation that I think Blizzard themselves is like, oh yeah, that's something we need to tap into. They got their money with, World of Warcraft going now, and Overwatch still crushing it with Overwatch 1 and 2. It's hard to say that the teams would go back to that. I don't even know if they make any StarCrafts anymore. I know that was the same idea, just obviously in space, but who's to say? Speaking of the tactics side of things, this one, there's a small chance just because they happen to remake an earlier iteration, but I think it's also so niche in terms of the system that I don't know if they would ever remake it or remaster it, is Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. Now, this was a game I fell in love with. I don't even know why. I think I got it through a friend, or maybe got interested through a friend initially. But this was a game I played for hours and hours and hours, never even getting to the ending as a kid, but finally playing it all the way through on stream when we finally did that. And just the story's great, and the different characters and class combinations that you can get with the different races of characters and species in the game. It was just a fun time. I know that is a big appeal for me with the different class systems and stuff. Like I tried Advance 2, and I know they brought in a new species, but I think they also dropped some. And it was just like, that sucks. Like, I don't know if it was the Vera or the Bonga or whatever. They weren't present. It was like, this had some of the best classes. That's not cool. And the new one just didn't deliver. So, I don't know if they'll ever make it because it is that niche of the Game Boy Advance. Obviously, other Game Boy Advance games have been remade in recent times. I think Advanced Wars would probably be the most recent one I can think of, being maybe even a month ago, that getting its official release, but I'm not sure. There's chance. Tactics, I think Ogre Reborn got released as of recording this past year, and there's rumors even now of it was one on PlayStation, something Lion, War of the Lions, I think that's it. Technically their second one, I think it was the second one, that getting a potential remake. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know how well. I mean, it must have done well enough to get a sequel, but I'm not sure if anyone's really focused on that particular title to remaster it. I think the PlayStation 1 titles might have a little bit more nostalgia factor to it comparatively. Not that, Game Boy Advance hasn't been, I don't know if out of date is the right term, but, not around for a decent amount of time as well to garner a remaster. But that's one that I think is just maybe a little bit more niche and a smaller audience that I don't know if that would be something a lot of people would be clamoring for in terms of a remaster. I'm trying to think of what else. Silly one. This one will never happen just because of how long the fucking games take. And you could also do the argument of like, they already did a collection, an HD collection. Yes, but that was of the Japanese editions. But Kingdom Hearts. I would love, selfishly, to see a Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 remake in the style and graphics of Kingdom Hearts 3. I know a lot of other Kingdom Hearts fans have talked about that here and there. I highly doubt it's ever going to happen because, once again, how long these fucking games take. Maybe it's because they're convoluted story. Who knows? But that would just be really cool. I know Kingdom Hearts 3 had more open worlds, whereas 1 and 2 had a little bit, obviously, more structured level design to them. Granted, for the graphics at the time. But I think you could find a nice blend between the two where you can open up a little bit these levels and areas of the previous titles, but also still maintain maybe not the rooms necessarily, but like some kind of structure, order, whatever it is in the level design to kind of still pay homage and nostalgia to the games of old. Just kind of update, obviously, how Sora, Donald, and Goofy look, and a little bit of the fighting mechanics. Still keep it a staged process of like Sora's progress with the Keyblade as a Keyblade master eventually. You could still show the kind of floatiness of Kingdom Hearts 1 in that fighting style, and then the evolution with 2 with the gauges and the different forms. But that'd be something cool just to see everybody get a facelift, which sounds a little weird. I'm not sure, once again, if that's a licensing issue as well, as we would have the old Final Fantasy characters in there, from Cloud to Leon, Squall, Tifa, Yuffie, oh crap, what's her name? Aerith, wow, Sid. So I'm not sure if that'd be an issue. They weren't present in Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm not sure exactly why that was. I'm sure some research could deal with that too. But then you also have older Disney licenses. I know Tarzan seems to be a little bit of a rough one for some reason. But bringing back Alice and bringing back the other princesses, not that they're maybe necessarily the most difficult to get, but you have to get that approval throughout. Granted, it is a Disney partnered game, so should be easier. Who knows? But yeah, once again, a timing issue from them. That wouldn't come out, if anything, till like what, 2030, if not past that. But never say never, I guess. I mean, anything can happen. Anything's possible. Yeah, just obviously there's a lot of games out there. I'm sure I'm missing. I mean, granted, these are just my picks, but I'm sure there's a bunch that you're shouting at me while you're listening or watching this now. And I'd love to hear them. Put them down in the comment section below. Let's just have a nice nostalgia trip. I will shout out one more. And I may have talked about this on a previous podcast topic, but I'm really happy and stoked that they made the Tony Hawk Pro Skaters 1 and 2 remake before Activision unfortunately brought down and kind of absorbed that team. But that remaster was fantastic, especially for someone who's only kind of played a little bit the ground level of those games, playing it at other friends' houses, relatives' houses on the PlayStation, and fully diving into the franchise with these remakes was awesome. One that I delved into and loved on the PS2 era, and luckily they made at that time a next-gen iteration on Xbox 360, would be Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. Same great mechanics as Pro Skater. They added on top of it with the parkour aspects, and I think it was like the Nada spins that you could do on different like poles and fire hydrants and whatnot, the spinning. They added stuff on top of it with that, but the real shining moment I feel of American Wasteland was its story. You're moving to LA, you are trying to kind of adapt, and you run into this ragtag group of skaters that just kind of have their own hangout and base, and it's essentially a junkyard, but just for kind of the loners and stuff that kind of band together. And eventually you're trying to you're trying to pay bail or get a guy out of jail that kind of looks out for you guys after he's run into some trouble. So you decide to turn the dump into a skate park, and you're essentially going around and like stealing or gathering pieces of this skate park from LA. So different like signage, or I think there was a T-Rex head, or just things like they're not working on, or don't need any more waste and whatnot. And you just kind of assemble it into this giant skate park. And the more you do, the park builds as you gather the pieces, so you can skate around it and see the progress yourself. So you're doing that, and you also run into all the different pros, and you do different little challenges for them, and then they'll eventually help you out in terms of like making a skate video at the park to kind of boost the word and like try and gain popularity for it, so you can get ticket sales and whatnot. And it had its stupid moments of like just cheese and like craziness, but American Wasteland was a great Tony Hawk game and had a great story with it. So seeing that, because if you go back now, whoo, boy, it looks dated. Seeing that now in a modern day setting, or at least modern day graphically, would be insane. Like, I can only imagine what the theme park, when it was all assembled, would look like in modern day graphics. It would be just really, really cool. And like I said, I think it melds both of those things together in terms of gameplay and story, where the whole experience is completed. And I think that one definitely deserves a little bit of TLC, but I don't know, with Activision, I believe, having the license, or at least getting the ability to use the license, I don't know if Vicarious, because they've been absorbed into Activision Blizzard to work on the Call of Duties and stuff like that, if they'd be able to work on a project like that, unfortunately. And I think other studios that do the remaster treatment, like I think Blue Point may be the only one that's still left, and they don't have the license for it. Like Toys for Bob, I don't remember if that was Activision. I think it was, because they worked on the Crash series. Like, they've been absorbed. It's really unfortunate. Like, I understand Call of Duty's, a big game and a yearly game. It needs a lot of people to work on it, but just seeing what these teams did for games like this and others, and seeing the quality that came out of those teams, and for them to now not have that creative ability, just is unfortunate, and leaves a lot on the table. So I doubt American Wasteland will get that appreciation and care into it as well, but love to see it.